Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. And once again, it is Thursday and it is match preview time. And I'm joined today, I'm happy to say, by Stephen McIlkenny, who is a journalist and also a Plymouth Argyle fan. So he is going to have a chat with me over the next 15, 20 minutes, looking ahead to Saturday's fixture at Home Park. First of all, though, quickly, the Gills did have an EFL Cup game Tuesday night, sorry. We went to Crawley, the People's Pension Stadium, a very lovely named ground that, and managed to take the lead, be pegged back, score in the 95th minute, concede in the 97th, and then somehow win 10-9 on penalties without missing a single spot kick. You've got to feel for the Crawley lad. He was the only one to miss. If he put his away and we'd put ours away, it'd have been down to the two goalkeepers. But great to get over the line. And like I keep saying on all videos at the moment, it's just great to have football back properly and seeing stadiums full of supporters. But that is not the purpose of tonight's show. Obviously, we want to talk to Stephen in depth to get some information on the Pilgrims. So first of all, Stephen, thanks for coming on. And how are you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me on.
Good. So, because obviously, you're not local to Plymouth. We've just been speaking off air. So what's the background?
Yeah, no, so I actually grew up abroad and went to an English school. So I quickly found out the hard way that when people came in and asked if you'd seen the game, they weren't talking about Kilmarnock against Aberdeen. So I had to quickly establish an English team, and Plymouth Argyle were the ones that stuck. So yeah, I've been following Argyle most of my life, to be honest, going to a lot of away games. At the time when kind of first got into them, it helped obviously that they had a lot of Scottish connections and in general. So, with Paul Stark being the manager, etc., it's always been it's quite good. So yeah,
Derek not Adams my local as well, haven't you?
Oh yeah, the anti-football Derek Adams
gets the job done
though. yeah, second time asking. But no, it's been a roller coaster having supported Argyle, but it beats Man United, as I always say. So at least I'm not can't be accused of being a glory hunter, at least.
That's it, yeah, and that's the same with myself. I can never be accused of being a glory hunter supporting Gills. We're now currently the longest serving team in League One after Peterborough's promotion back in May. So, yeah, nothing like that can be levelled at either of us. Right, let's talk about Plymouth then. Obviously, you've only played 2 games, like everyone else at the moment. That's a league game, which ended up in a 2-0 defeat, and then a slightly surprising 4-0 win. I think if people were just looking from the outside against Peterborough last night, who we've already mentioned, but obviously looking at the 2 team lineups, Peterborough made a lot of changes. You didn't, looking at the lineup that you went with Saturday and then Tuesday night. But first of all, transfer business. By my calculations, I've done a bit of research. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 new signings. Is that correct so far? I've written down Macaulay Gillespie, Dan Scarr, Brendan Galloway, James Wilson, Callum Burton, James Bolton, and Jordan Houghton.
Yeah, I think you've got them all. I don't know if did you say Ryan Broom as well? Right, Ryan Broom
might have missed Ryan Broom off the website I was using.
You've also probably done more research than I have off the top of my head of signings. So yeah, I think that our transfer business has been relatively healthy, and I think from an Argyle point of view, it's been in the right areas that fans were concerned about. So one of the first signings was James Wilson, who obviously Ipswich fans will know more about than most, but he was our Player of the Year last year. So really encouraging. And then we obviously had Dan Scarr come in from, I think it was Walsall he was at, but a player that Ryan Lowe's been scouting for a while apparently, and then Macaulay Gillespie, who is randomly from the A-League down in
Brisbane
Australia.
Roar, I've written down. So I know absolutely nothing about him at all. I'm not going to pretend I do.
No, definitely not. I mean, there's been a lot of research going on in Scotland about Australian football, obviously with Ange Postecoglou at Celtic now. So maybe this is just the start of a new trend where we're going to all become A-League fans. But no, it's been interesting. I think from an Argyle point of view, though, and especially the way that Ryan Lowe plays, offensive and attacking football wasn't the issue. It was leaking goals at the back and being really inconsistent at the back as well. With like Scott Wooten and whatnot. So it's been quite refreshing to see that there's been a targeted effort from Argyle, to fix the problems that we know that are ongoing. And I mean, even the fact that there's apparently a few more offers out there for players, obviously not privy to who they are, but I think that one area of concern would be the depth Argyle have at the moment. So I think most fans would be relatively pleased with the transfer business have done so far. And of course, one of the biggest things over the summer was, securing the signature of Luke Jeffcott again for a couple more seasons, which, it can be better than any transfer signing you can make when you manage to retain one of your upcoming and arguably best forwards.
Yeah, I think, and listening to you talk, I think you're in the same boat as a lot of League One clubs, particularly Plymouth, Gillingham size. We've seen Ipswich go and obliterate the transfer market, so to speak, with 15 new arrivals and for varying fees and free transfers, and that's fine. They've got a new owner, and good luck to them. I'm sure if we had a new owner or a sugar daddy or whatever you want to call it, we'd be doing it and we'd be enjoying it as well. But obviously, there's a food chain with everything, and I think I've said on a couple of podcasts and videos already that I'd say 90% of the clubs in League One are still not complete in terms of knowing their first 11, having everybody in that they want to have in. It's still a bit truncated, isn't it? I mean, we lost 2 weeks of pre-season because of COVID. We had to self-isolate, and we're not the only club. So I think everybody's still a work in progress in general, aren't they? And like you say, it's sometimes more important who you've kept rather than who you've bought in. And we're in a similar boat. We've lost Connor Ogilvie, who was, for me, top 3 best left backs in the division last season. We lost Jordan Graham, who was immense for us last year with, I think, 13 goals and 12 assists. But we've managed to keep Carl Dempsey. We've managed to keep Dane Oliver, so that's our top scorer and our best centre midfielder. Yeah. We've managed to keep Jack Tucker, our best centre half. And then you can build around that again. And we know that player turnover is generally quite high at most League One clubs. So it'd be interesting to see everyone beds in. And I think we probably could have this chat in 2 or 3 months and you'd be able to give me a better idea of who's playing where. But James Wilson was the one I actually did in a written piece. I wrote a blog a couple of weeks ago or a week or so back and said that I did one key player for each club in the division. And I said James Wilson purely because of the defensive issues last season. Now, let's touch on Rotherham first at the weekend. It didn't look like they'd been rectified, unfortunately, from an outsider's perspective. If I recall correctly, the second goal, I think, is across from the right-hand side and it bounces 2 or 3 times across the 6-yard line. The centre-half sort of runs past it and then tries to stick out a foot, and the Rotherham lads left with a fairly simple finish. And I suppose in one sense you're like tearing your hair out, but at the same time you've got to allow these teams and these players to bed in and get used to each other, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I always think as well that the nature of the way that Argyle play, we're always going to be slightly more exposed at the back, and it's especially for a League One and League Two level and for a lower league level, it's a relatively a new system to a lot of these players that come in. We're a bit more expressive on the ball. There's much more sort of roaming around positions, etc., playing out from the back. So things that maybe players aren't as comfortable with. So yeah, of course you'll need to take some time to bed things in. I also think Rotherham are probably looking at around the playoffs, if not more, this year. It's just a kind of outside bet, but the other thing you need to bear in mind as well is that Freddie Ladapo coming back to play Argyle, we're already 1 down because how often does the hand that feed come back to bite you, or comes back to bite the hand that feed? Sorry. So it wasn't
it correct that the Plymouth fans were singing a song towards him just as he headed in the goal as well? I'm sure it got mentioned on a podcast that I co-host.
I don't know. I've only caught the highlights, and if I was following on audio, so I'm not too sure I could hear that well. So I couldn't confirm or deny that, to be honest with you. But I mean, it's one of those where I think that I fancy Rotherham this season. I think we're looking all right, and again, it's who they've retained, etc., and experienced team. I wasn't overly concerned about the result, especially away from home. I thought that, there probably could have been a bit more from Argyle, especially a defending point of view. But I think I could be saying that all season again, even though they have improved because of the way that Argyle play and the nature of how exposed they can be. Argyle can't always defend a lead. For example, that game years ago when we went to Anfield and drew nothing each, and it was Derek Adams, anti-football, backs to the wall sort of thing. We're not really capable of that anymore. We'd actually try and take someone on instead, which is great to watch as a fan, but you expect sort of defensive issues at the back, and I think it's a bit of rustiness overall. Not overly concerned about it though. I think that Argyle still tried to stick to the fundamentals of what they're about, possession-based football, a few decent chances, poor at the goals, but it's going to be the story of the season for so many clubs, issues and errors, and it's going to happen.
Because you had plenty of the ball, didn't you? Looking at the stats, I've just brought them up. You had 60% of the ball, but I mean, I've had this argument with fans up and down the country for the last year or more because Gills have it levelled at them that we play the wrong way and we're slightly anti-football because Steve Evans likes to go direct. But my counter argument is, yeah, we go direct to start with to Dane Oliver because he's a big target and he's a focal point. But then we had, like last season, for instance, we had Ollie Lee and we had Carl Dempsey and Jordan Graham that were running off of him. So we were getting into advanced areas quickly, but then we were getting it down and playing. But is there really a right or a wrong way to play football? Because if you're winning football matches, generally your fan base doesn't care how you're getting it done.
Yeah, although I think there comes a point in time where, you know, there probably is to some extent, you know, and I say this from the Derek Adams era, it became very, you know, someone sticking to it dogmatically and it becomes quite soul destroying to watch. And I think that even the players you attract to the club can you know change based on how you play football, and it can, there's a brand that you could build. I agree with you, though, at the end of the day, no one really remembers how much possession you had or how many nice passes or whatever. Just remember the scoreline. You know, and that's as simple as that. But I do think that, you know, last night Argyle seemed to put a lot of things right with the Peterborough result. I know you've mentioned that Peterborough made a lot of changes, and I think that Argyle not making a lot of changes was deliberate to try and put things right almost with.
Yeah, that was bringing me on to my next question. That's what I wanted to ask because I noticed he only made one change, didn't he, Lowe? And that was Brendan Galloway came in for Macaulay Gillespie on the left side of that back three. Aside from that, it was exactly the same team. So you had 10. So was it a case of, like you've just mentioned, it was let's get Rotherham out of our system, or it's just a case of this is our plan, this is how we're going to play, and we don't want to keep making wholesale changes because we need all these new players to bed into the system and the ethos of how we're going to play?
Well, I think the back line changes kind of made, you know, not making any changes or really on the back line apart from Galloway, as you mentioned, made sense because you're going to have a core of your defence that are going to be sticking together all season. And I think the same can be applied to, you know, your attacking players where, you know, there's that little bit of match sharpness that you don't pick up in friendlies and, you know, the understanding of each other. We've got obviously Houghton in the middle of the pitch as well, kind of coming into it. So, you know, Camera and Edwards and Danny Mayer are going to be used to each other. There's still that sort of bedding in process that you need initially. So I wasn't too surprised to see an unchanged lineup. I also think that, you know, clubs need to take the EFL Cup seriously. So I'm glad we didn't really make too many changes. So yeah, I think that's kind of part and parcel of, you know, second game of the season, try to put some things right from the weekend, build a lot of confidence as well. You know, we had both strikers score last night, so I'd be very surprised if neither of them started. Obviously Hardy got a double as well. So you know, that's the kind of thing you want your players to come in with a midweek win. I always like after a sort of depressing weekend defeat to have a midweek game to try and put things right. It's you know, so much worse when you're bottom of the table and you're going into a sort of game that you know you're not going to win, but a cup game, anything can happen, as you can see last night. And I guarantee going into training today for the Argyle players would have been a lot different from going in on Monday or Tuesday whenever we went in after the Rotherham game.
That's it, yeah, and it, like you say, you almost forget the Saturday, not forget, but you know you've learned from it and you've recovered from it, and it doesn't make it quite as bad at least. And it'd be interesting. I think Saturday's battle it'd be contrasting styles. I think just moving on to the team news for the Gills, and then we'll get your side of it from Plymouth. I don't know if you've heard anything from coming out of the club. I know it's quite early in the week still because we're recording on a Wednesday night rather than a Thursday, but. Gills we've had a load missing. I mean, last night in the EFL Cup, we had to play 2 youth products at fullback. We had a kid making his debut up front. We had kids on the bench. We had a centre back whose only appearance has been a friendly since last November. So it was very sort of patched up and put together, and we managed to find a way to get over the line, which is always a positive sign because. I remember Alex Ferguson saying for years that a sign of a good team is winning when you're not at your best. But our team news will be a lot different, I think, Saturday. So if everyone, or at least a couple, are available, I know we've still got big doubts over Alex McDonald and John Akindi. But I'd imagine our team would be Jamie Cumming in goal, Ryan Jackson if he's fit at right back, David Tatondra at left back. Centre backs are likely to be Jack Tucker and Max Amar. If I was picking the team, I'd have Stuart O'Keefe, Carl Dempsey and Daniel Phillips in the middle of the park. And then I'd change it up from last week. We had a diamond. I'd go to a 4-2-3-1. So I'd have Danny Lloyd and Mustafa Carayol flanking for Dane Oliver, last season's top scorer. Obviously, you play a different system. You play 3 at the back. look to get it down and play through the thirds, whereas we try and get it into that final third fairly quickly and then play from there and get our good players on the ball quickly up the end of the pitch where we can't have other teams cause damage to us. So I imagine from an outsider's perspective, looking at the two lineups that you've put out, there's not going to be too many changes for Saturday.
No, and a lot of, I don't think there will be. I mean, it might be an unchanged lineup. You might, I'm not too sure. You might have McCauley go back in. It's one of those where there's not going to be whole scale changes. A lot of the reason for that is, the squad is relatively, is relatively stretched. We've got Tuesday, since we're recording on a Wednesday, but on Tuesday night we had Niall Ennis. I think he was injured in the warm up, or he dropped out of the initial squad because he had a hamstring issue. And then obviously we've still got George Cooper, who's coming back from injury, so he won't be kind of. I don't expect him to be back. I've not heard anything about his return. He's back to training, but it's I think it was a knee operation he had in January, so it's going to be a slow return. Ryan Broom wasn't in the squad, I think, last night, but I think he came on, so I'm not too sure if he'll feature at all. So I imagine, given how we played last night, it would be a relatively settled 11, although not a settled squad. The only thing from last night really was Danny Mayer, obviously, who was taken off in the second half, but I think it was a precautionary sort of substitution. I think we're 3-0 up at the time, and it was more, I think he felt a bit of tightness, but nothing really, obvious injury there. So I don't think that's too serious or too severe, and would expect him to be in the squad. But it's one to watch. He was obviously taken off for a reason, where it'd be to prevent any further injury or to prevent that strain. I'm not too sure. That'll probably come out nearer the time with the game. So, but I think it seems like it was a more precautionary thing.
And also, there's looking at the app that I use. There's a red cross against Jordan Houghton as well. Did he come off injured as well?
Oh, I'm not sure if he came off injured. I'm not sorry. I'm very
no, that's fine. I've only just noticed it because you mentioned Danny Mayer, and he's got like a red cross against his name, and he got withdrawn. And then there's one next to Jordan Houghton as well, and he got bought off for Adam Randell with 12 minutes to play. So I'd imagine it's not serious then if no one's reported too much.
No, I mean, I know that I was on the Herald, not Herald, is it the Herald? Plymouth Live or the Herald or whatever it was, and obviously it was all Danny Mayer sort of stuff. So that was kind of when I caught more of an end. But no, I mean, Adam Randall's one of those where kind of coming forward, it could be, I think a lot of fans wanted. I think he did quite well in the sort of pre-season. And a lot of fans wanted to actually see him start the first game, and there's calls at half time during the Rotherham game to bring him on. I think just because of what we were lacking. So he could feature, but I imagine it'd be pretty much the same sort of lineup that we saw. And also, I mean, given the performance of Argyle last night, I'd be surprised if he changed too much. I know, as you say, it was a much changed Peterborough team, but I think that if you look at some of the goals, the finishes from Hardy were brilliant. The build-up play for the third goal was excellent, and there's certainly a lot to build on from an Argyle point of view for the game on Saturday. So I wouldn't expect whole-scale changes for sure.
I've not seen the highlights yet. I've only got in 10 minutes ago from our penalty shootout.
You're in for a treat, mate. I promise you that.
Yeah, I'm going to try and have a look tonight.
Really
I hope there's some highlights on Quest tonight, and we can have a look tonight, being Wednesday, not Thursday, because we're recording a day early and confusing everyone again. Right, it's been really informative, and that's the reason I've decided to change the way that I do these match previews this season, because it's great to be able to sit down for 15, 20 minutes and talk to fans of teams that we're going to be facing rather than just getting someone to pre-record stuff. So I really appreciate you coming on, Stephen. Obviously, we've got one big question before I let you go and enjoy your evening, and that is score prediction.
Well, yeah, there's two things I'm quite looking forward to, which is obviously the number of team players that have played for each team featuring this game will be pretty interesting. So you've got obviously Reeves, who's now Gills, was on loan last season. Ollie Lee can probably, if anyone's going to score, it'll be him. But yeah, I think, to be honest, the last two games, I think were 1-0, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 1-0 at home park. And then, Luke Jeffcott scored, and I think we lost 1-0 away. So
yeah, it was the last game of the season, wasn't it? We beat you 1-0. Yeah, Verdane Oliver, yeah.
So I'm going to be ambitious from an Argyle point of view. I want to say 2-0, but it's Argyle, and I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet. So I'm going to go 2-1. and I'm going to go 2-1 Argyle and stick to the two. Oh, Ryan Hardy to score and Jeff Cott to score if I have to be overly specific. Only because I think a striker coming into it and getting a brace in midweek, and then the confidence it'll bring. Jeff Cott was kind of on a wee, not a barren spell, but he'd stopped scoring as much, which is for a little while, and then I think he tends to score in sort of purple patches. So I'm going to go 2-1 Argyle.
I've gone 2-1, but the other way, unsurprisingly. Yeah, I've said 2-1 to Gills. I think it'll be a close game. Obviously, we're not reading too much into any of the results over the 4 games that the two sides have played so far, because it's a very embryonic League One season so far, and just hoping that we'll be closer to full strength and have just enough. We're unbeaten. We've not actually won a game in 90 minutes yet, so we have to sooner or later. But at the same time, we've not lost a game either. But yeah, I'm going to say 2-1 to Gills, and I'm going to go for Verdane Oliver and Danny Lloyd to score the Gills goals.
I mean, this is the thing. I would, if you were to ask me at the start, it's the start of the season. If you ask me how the final table is going to look towards the end, I actually think that Gillingham and Argyle might be relatively close to each other in the table. So I think it's one of those games where I wouldn't be surprised if each team won the home game, for example, or 2 draws, for example, over the course of the season. Because I think, as you've rightly touched on, there's a degree of similarity, not just in terms of the former squads and loans and whatnot, but loanees, but the actual teams itself. So yeah, I mean, I went on the Sunderland one as well and had to say that Argyle were going to win, even though I didn't think they would. So you have to stick by what your team, don't you? So no, it'll be 2-1 regardless. We'll just see who's right.
Who's smiling on Monday, yeah, or Saturday at 5 p.m, definitely. Right, Stephen, it's been a real pleasure. I really appreciate you coming on. So you can check out Stephen. He is on Twitter at StephenBMCL. If you want to go and follow him and listen to him talking about Plymouth Argyle and another range of subjects, I am sure. Right, Gills fans, you know where we are. We are on 4 platforms. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're on YouTube. Please comment down below when the video is live on the channel and let us know your score predictions, whether you're a Gillingham or a Plymouth fan. We'll be back on Monday this week for a Monday review, because I'm not travelling to Home Park, unfortunately. But enjoy your weekend. And until next time, up the Gills.